We'll talk next about soils. We're both passionate about soils as a big part of vegetable gardening, and we think they make all the difference.
Well, I know when I've written about soils in the Herald, people have come up to me later and said, love your articles, don't like the soil things, don't write about that anymore. And I know it's true, it's kind of sciencey or something. You don't want to hear about like all the stuff that's going on in the soil. But I realize, especially here in Calgary, if we don't talk about soils and you try to grow a garden, you're going to be calling me and complaining on CBC that nothing's growing. So we're going to give you 2 minutes on soils. Does anyone have soils that look like this with the cracks? Yeah. Does anyone have clay soils?
Yeah.
Guess what I found out? They have clay soils in Toronto too.
Clay soils in Toronto, but we like clay. We think clay is not a demon. Clay is a good thing, and that's because clay is sticky, if you will. So your nutrients stick to the clay, your water sticks to the clay, so clay is good for holding stuff, way better than sand.
So who wants sticky clay? You might say to yourself. Well, the fellow that's double digging here, sorry, we're going to have to just pick on him the rest of the talk now. Yeah, it just happened that way. Thank you for coming. Would you come again? No, just kidding. What happens with clay is it's got a negative charge on it. And all of the little ions, like the calcium and the potassium, they all have a positive charge. So they just sense that there's clay there, and they're just attracted by forces bigger than teenagers, and they are on each other. And so when you've got at least a small amount of clay in your garden, you know you've got minerals that are available for the plants. How do the plants get that particle off that clay? How do they get that calcium off that clay? Does anyone know that? They use fungus. They use little microorganisms. So we'll talk more about those, my other favorite topic. So this is your typical soil triangle. Do you agree this is how all the soil triangles look?
Who's seen a soil triangle before here?
All the scientific people.
All the scientific, okay.
Anyways, our artist looked at the soil triangle. I emailed her and she ignored it. And she didn't include it in the book. And I emailed her back, what happened to the soil triangle? She couldn't figure it out. There was so much going on. So I just want to point out that if you have pure sand, it's on this corner, and that's 100% sand. If you have pure silt, which is meaning that you live down by the river because it washes in all the time, you're on that corner. If you have pure clay, you're on this corner. Almost every garden book I read says, buy good loam. And that's this tiny little sweet spot in the middle. Loam isn't just a made-up word that if you want to have a good garden, you buy good loam. Because if you order up good loam, it's like asking for a purebred chocolate lab and your puppy's a Chihuahua because the mother was a Chihuahua. You're not going to get loam if you don't have the basics for loam in the beginning. And the basics are just the right sweet spot between silt, sand, and clay. So people ask me all the time, if I add more sand, will that make my clay more like loam? Now this is 100% sand over here. I say that'll move your clay into sandy clay or sandy clay loam, or eventually you'll add so much sand you'll have pure sand in your garden. It's not going to turn your soil into loam.
We say if you add lots of organic matter to the soil, so lots of compost, then don't worry about having that right balance of sand, clay, and silt. It doesn't really matter, and it's not practical to try to get that right balance. Who cares? If you add lots of organic matter, then you'll make nutrients available and there's better conditions for those plant roots.
Thank you, Stephen.
Okay.
I can hardly do this without you. And so I've got my turning composter up again, but just because you all are making compost anyway. And I just want you to know, like Steve said, it's great to have compost. Because if you have compost, what does it do to your soil? It gives it bench strength, right? It feeds the microorganisms. Does the compost feed the soil and plants directly? No. It feeds the microbes. The plants feed the microbes. The soil feeds the microbes. It's all a big transition. In return, the microbes feed the plants. So if you can put your hand into your soil and just softly, without a trowel, without a pickaxe, then you have lots of microbes in your soil. So that's what we call bench strength. Your soil will be strong. This is my new hobby, so I have to make you watch this 20-second slide. This is my nematode right here. Under my microscope, because all of these tiny dots, the bigger dots are probably sand, silt, or clay, but the tiny dots are probably bacteria. The microbes eating the protozoa, which is eating the bacteria. They're all pooping out what? We're big on poop in this book. They're all pooping out nitrogen. So as they poop out nitrogen, it becomes available to the plants. So, okay, nobody else was excited about that slide. I love that slide.